Okay, so Gavin Joyce from Dublin, Ireland asks, how might someone who hasn't yet contributed to the Ember ecosystem begin?
So I think Ember ecosystem is an interesting thing because
That's a big.
probably the easiest way to get to contribute to the Ember ecosystem is to write add-ons for Ember CLI. So you maybe wrap an existing JavaScript library, write your own little JavaScript library,
Write usable components.
like basically scratch some itch that you have. I think that will probably get you some good bang for your buck. And honestly, if you work at a company that has some problem that's somewhat common, it really doesn't hurt you to take it and instead of making it a private repository, make it public. Very few of these, the little tweak that you have to Broccoli build process is not going to be a trade secret. So just get it out there, and if it's never particularly successful as an open source project, that's fine too. Maybe some other people get inspiration out of it. I've seen a lot of open source projects that look at not particularly popular plugins and then use them as an inspiration for future versions of the larger project. So that's one thing. I think in terms of contributing to Ember itself, it's important, I think, to think about how much time you legitimately have to contribute. Right. So I think a lot of people have the idea that they want to contribute to the code of Ember. And they're like, well, I'll just go in there, I'll look for an easy issue to solve, then I'll jump in, it'll take like 2 hours on a weekend, and boom, I'll be going.
I think that's kind of this idea that people have about open source. All bugs are easy or shallow with enough eyes or whatever the thing goes. But I think that it's pretty frustrating as a maintainer to have someone who is very enthusiastic and very well-meaning, and we definitely appreciate that enthusiasm, but just landing some code, that's not at all the end of it. You land some code, now we are relying on you because you wrote it to maintain it over time, to fix any bugs that come up with it, to write documentation for it, to help other people understand it. So we're not talking about a couple hours on the weekend. This is hopefully, if something you're interested in, something you need to commit to for weeks or months.
Yeah, so I think if you're not necessarily ready to commit to like weeks and weeks of work, and I don't necessarily mean
I don't think we expect that from anyone.
Certainly
no one's expecting you.
Yeah, and I don't mean weeks and weeks of like full-time work. I mean spending a good portion of your free time on it, which nobody's expecting that. But if you're not willing to commit to that, then you probably have better luck looking at places to improve the documentation. There's all kinds of problems with any project's documentation that would be very helpful.
Or even just like answering questions on Stack Overflow.
And as Mixonic, Matthew Beal pointed out, you can also test new versions of Ember and report bugs. Look at RFCs that have come out to see if you have any feedback.
Track Ember. If it's a couple weeks before a beta is going to be promoted to the release candidate, please just try your apps. Like, it's so much better for us if you can tell us before you release the stable version than after.
Yeah. But I think if you are interested in becoming a serious contributor, probably the first major step is get the whole Ember project building, running tests, make some small changes, confirm that the tests will pass, that you understand like where you're supposed to put things and all that. That in itself might take up your whole first session as an open source contributor. But if that seems okay to you, basically spending a few hours just like getting a handle on how the project is built, then I think you're going to be fine.
I agree that I think that stick-to-itiveness is the high order bit, and I think people who have contributed, people on the core team, notice, hey, this person's been around for a few months, and they're keeping at this problem. You have just a finite amount of time in the day, so who you try to invest time in is you want to make sure that person's not going to just get bored and disappear in a few weeks.
I think it is worth just being very clear that people who contribute things other than code are, of course, extremely high value.
Yes.
So I think when I say if you want to get involved in contributing to code, it's a bigger commitment. That doesn't mean to say that you have a higher value to the project. We have a lot of people that have contributed documentation, that have contributed infrastructure.
Even people who write just like blog posts are hugely valuable to adoption.
So I think there are people on the core team that mostly do these tasks. So this is less about saying that in order to be a valuable contributor, you need to do this crazy work, and more to say if what you are excited about, what you're interested in doing is code contribution, that just ends up being a harder thing to dive into than maybe helping with an event or writing some documentation. Those things have sort of an easier learning curve to get into for an open source project than the code bits.
Right. Cool. All right, Gavin, hope that answers your question.